The show today, the man, the myth, the legend himself, Brett Swarts, is back. He is considered one of the most well-rounded capital gains tax deferral experts. He is also an excellent speaker. He has spoken at some incredible conferences, on some incredible podcasts. He has been involved in hundreds of millions of dollars of transactions and has helped people save, I don't even know the number, a lot of money on capital gains through the Deferred Sales Trust strategy. Brett, welcome back.
Hunter, so good to be here. Thank you for having me.
So offline, we were talking about, number one, you got a new book coming out, which is super exciting. We'll talk about that in just a second. But one thing I love about the way that you're positioned in the space is that all of your clients come to you when they've basically made it financially, right? They've made it they've made money, they've made millions of dollars. They're trying to defer capital gains. Most of the people in the world are trying to make that money, and that would be a huge benefit for them to have a problem like that. But when you get people that are later in the stage of their kind of economic development, things get really fun, but you do uncover different problems at that level. And so I want to talk to you about kind of some of those problems and how to solve them. But generally speaking, for those that don't know, he has been on the show before. We'll link to some of those appearances on the show notes page. Just real quick, high level, what do you do with clients? How do you work with them?
Yeah, we help them defer capital gains taxes and really unlock the freedoms they desire, whether it be location freedom, time freedom, the business freedom, the 1031 freedom. And it's really to hopefully they can see and feel and understand that, wealth is not just the financial freedom of replacing your expenses with passive income. It's also the ability to, live a legacy and pass wealth and build wealth in a way that gives you the freedoms you desire, like optimal timing, like new depreciation schedules, like eliminating estate tax. And so through a special strategy for a special person who created, he's one of my business partners, we're helping people unlock wealth, I think in a new way that gives them the ability to be an entrepreneur or to be retired, the ability to be active or to be passive. And when you do that together with the team, that's what the transformation is. And so we're hopefully people can see and feel and that they can be transformational when they want to exit their highly appreciated assets.
Cool. And obviously we've talked in detail about the Deferred Sales Trust on the show before. We'll link to that in the show notes page. If you can't find it there, just search his name plus ASIM Capital and Deferred Sales Trust. That would be a good place to start. So let's talk about some of these freedoms, right? I mean, I think most people know about financial freedom. They want to be able to make enough money to live a life that allows them to spend their time how they want to. Do you still feel like that's kind of the definition of what financial freedom is in this world that's always changing?
100%. That's consistent. That's financial freedom. You make sure your passive cash flow is offsetting your living expenses, hopefully plus a much more margin to be able to travel and spend time doing the things you want to do. So it's basically replacing your time and energy that you have to trade for cash flow by investing into other things that are working to give you that time back. So that's still consistent. Absolutely.
Okay, cool. But that's not what we're here to talk about today, right? We're kind of assuming, hey, listen, you've got it. If you're listening to this podcast, either you've already achieved that or you're on your way. We're trying to give you the tools to get there. But when you do achieve that, it's kind of like if you buy a nice car, you're kind of driving home, you're like, now what? Well, there's a lot more. There's a lot more to life than just simply having a lot of passive cash flow. There's other things that people aspire to accomplish. What are some of those things that, people may have uncovered when they do achieve financial freedom?
Yeah, I like to start with a client of mine named Ron Anderson. He and his wife owned a multifamily property that they converted into an Airbnb, and it was wildly successful in the Denver, Colorado area. And they're making a massive amount of cash flow. And they were like, oh my goodness, this deal is just crushing it. But they're like, but our time and our energy is just being pooled all the time to help, manage and operate this thing. And this was about a $4.5 million asset sales price. Plus they had a lot of debt at about $1.3 million on the debt on there that they didn't really like. And so they just said, you know what? They looked up and they're like, man, we have these other properties, these other assets that are, definitely not as time consuming or at least stress, the stress that they were having with this property. They said, what if we were to sell this one deal, pay off our debt, and then not have to worry about all of our time and energy going to this property, and even still keep some decent cash flow with the Deferred Sales Trust. And so for them, they achieved financial freedom. It was now the time and energy freedom for location to travel more, not have to be tied locally to Denver, the ability to pay off their debt. They had some debt freedom. They didn't really want to be in debt. They also thought the market was starting to shift. They did this about a year ago, and they were pretty smart about the timing of all of this. And so now I call him up and he's like, yeah, this is great. Second deal, Warren and Catherine, they've been in real estate for 25 years, multiple 1031 exchanges. And the husband, he's driving 4.5 hours to have to, fix things at the property. He still has property management, but it's 15 units. It's in Taxifornia. It's about a $2.5 million asset sale price. Really no basis, really no debt. Their NOI is about 120. But here's the big thing that changed over the last few years for him, and really the last 10 years. They have two twin daughters, and they had the kids later in life. And so, they're already in like their mid 50s. They had their kids later in life. And they're like, man, I'm trading all of this time and energy, 4.5 hours when I'm driving away from the family. And it's like he was trading the toilets, trash, and liability, termites, all these T's for his two twin daughters and the time he could be spending with them when they're 10 years old. And so for him, it was very clear, although it was hard for them to give up that unilateral control of that asset that was producing good cash flow. But once they looked at the Deferred Sales Trust, they said this was and he's like so relieved now. He's like, Brett, I didn't realize how much of a burden it was to have to manage and operate these properties until I'm out of it now, because I've been doing it for so long. This is just, as a husband, I was always the one to provide for the family. I wanted to keep a security there, and this was our retirement plan, and it's there. But then I found myself trading my time and energy that I could be spending with my daughters. He's like, no. So he ended the property, and he's never been happier.
I love hearing that. That's great. And obviously, the burden of the timeline and all that stuff is something that with the Deferred Sales Trust, you can kind of eliminate that. Just for context for listeners, I have not implemented that strategy, but I have done quite a bit of research, many of which has been recorded, and you can just, like I said, go back and listen to some of those things. Cool. I love it. Okay, cool. So what's the next step then? He's got the sale. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think a couple of things is, if you're listening to this, you might be saying like, how can I relate this or how can I connect this? The first thing we want to help you do is envision or, have a vision for your wealth plan. Like, what does that look like beyond just financial freedom, right? How does your time, your location, what does are you entrepreneurial, right? Or are you wanting to be passive? Are you wanting to diversify your wealth and be liquid, pay off some debt? Realizing that your vision for your wealth is the most important thing in your wealth legacy plan before you pick any strategy, whether it be the Deferred Sales Trust, a 1031 exchange, a donor advised fund, something that's charitable, some kind of life insurance thing. Like, all of these different things are just tools and strategies, but your vision and clarity of what you really want and desire, where you're trying to be, is the most important thing. So once you've established that, then the second thing is, okay, which strategy or strategies, it could be plural, are going to help me to achieve where I want to be. Number two, on that same thing is you want to build the team. So you're going to build the strategy, build the team. And who's the team to help me get me there, right? Who are the groups, the people like a Hunter Thompson that are investing in multifamily properties and assets that I can feel great about once the funds are there, right? So it's the investment team, it's the tax attorney team, it's the CPA, it's the my role would be like a trustee. I could be a part of that team to help you with that as it pertains to if you're going to use the Deferred Sales Trust. And ultimately, that's what unlocks the freedom to where you want to be. And so, yeah, so those two deals really come to mind. I think about another client of mine. His name is Dharma. We did $37 million worth of land sales. He's very entrepreneurial. He is 1031 exchanges for a very long time. However, he started buying these pieces of land, Hunter, and then he would tie them up. And when he would tie them up, he would improve them, but he wouldn't close on it until like 6 months from the date he tied it up. And he put like a large non-refundable deposit down over a period of time. And then that was on the line, but then he would find a buyer once he's entitled or got it passed through some things, and then he would sell it. Well, guess what? That's short-term, Hunter, right? Doesn't qualify for long-term capital gains tax. So for him, it would have been ordinary income tax. So even though it was Texas, they didn't have capital gains tax for Texas, he still got hit with income tax, federal, which is big. No, and that was a big thing for him. So he's going, you know what? I don't want to get hit with multiple millions of dollars of income tax if I can use the DST. So that was his freedom to be able to defer that and then reinvest it back into other business ventures that he was already doing. And so that's the ability to give flexibility. So if your wealth plan is flexibility and being an entrepreneur, you can use it. So that's the Dharma deal. And I'll pause there, see what you're thinking, Hunter.
Yeah, that's awesome. So kind of reiterating, a lot of people use 1031s. Obviously, this is a different structure, different strategy. One of the benefits is that you don't have the time sensitivity that associated with the 1031. So you have a little bit more time. Let's say you anticipate there's going to be a market correction, for example. You can't really take advantage of that with a 1031. You're forced to replace the capital in short order. With the deferred sales trust, the anticipation is you can actually wait. You can wait indefinitely. That's in my understanding, if I remember from our last conversation.
Yeah, you're nailing it. In fact, part of the chapters in my book, I'm talking about a tactical DST planning, where you're really getting down to the details. And part of the strategy, or part of the one thing I would encourage you to practice, is take a piece of paper and draw a line down the middle of the piece of paper, and essentially make a list and reverse engineer where you want to be, and write out what strategy is going to help you get you there. And then you're going to rank from 1 to 10 what's most important to you. And here are just a few ideas. I mean, capital gains tax deferral is one of them, right? That's financial. Income tax deferral, which is sometimes overlooked with the DST. Are you charitable giving? Maybe donor advised fund, right? Do you want optimal timing to be able to dollar cost average or buy when you want to, versus the 1031, shotgun wedding? Do you want diversification? Do you want to pay off debt? Do you want estate tax elimination? Do you want an alternative to a 1031 exchange altogether? Maybe you need a backup plan. You want to actually go for your 1031, but you want something to rescue it. Do you want to be able to sell a business or other assets that aren't 1031 eligible? Do you want liquidity, retirement, time and location freedom, no more toilets, trash, and termites, increased ROE, new depreciation schedule, partnership freedom, location freedom? These are just a few of the ideas. And then rank them. What's most important to you? Like, we just did a deal in San Diego. It was 4 partners selling a $13 million car wash, and they bought the land for about $500,000. It was one of those old taco stands. I don't know if you've ever been to San Diego. They're like the best, California burritos, I think, in the world. They're so good. Unless you probably go to Mexico, then they're even better. But the point is, there's like a taco stand there for like 20 years on about a 2-acre parcel in a kind of a rundown area. It's called Chula Vista of San Diego. Well, these clients of mine, they bought the land, and the way they made the deal is they said, this gentleman who's in the taco stand, they go, look, we're going to create a big old amazing $4 million car wash, but we're going to put you at the center of that car wash. So our people are getting their car washed, they can get, great Mexican food. He's like, great, we'll probably triple your sales. Fantastic. So he took the deal, made the deal. They bought the land, they develop it. Well, guess what? The value went to $13 million. So their exit was a huge capital gains tax, about 40%. But guess what? It's a partnership. In a partnership, the 1031 typically everyone has to go to the next deal, which means in this scenario, they also had some debt. They'd have to go find a $13 million deal or greater, take on equal or greater debt. And guess what? The whole partnership didn't want to necessarily do all that. They didn't want to take on a bunch. They're in the business of developing and selling at 13 million, not paying for assets that are already built for 13 million. So the deferred sales trust was incredible because it gave them the partnership freedom. One partner wanted to just pay his tax and be done, so he paid his tax. The other 3 did the deferred sales trust without having to do a 1031. They paid off their debt. And the best part about this, again, they did this deal last year before a lot of things shifted. They've been sitting calm in passive, mostly lending, multifamily lending funds that are paying about 10, 11%, not so much of the big stock market shifts. And they're just waiting. And some of them have gone into hotel passive developments. And they're really happy with what the deferred sales trust did for them. So everyone's a little bit different, but hopefully some of these stories are giving some people some inspiration.
For sure. All right. So you recently wrote a book, which is cool. And I think people can get access to that shortly as of the launching of this. So if you're listening to this right now, you can get access to, I think, the pre-sale. Tell us a little bit more about the book and how people can get access.
Yes, it's called Building a Capital Gains Tax Exit Plan. And we say it's the proven playbook for unlocking your ideal wealth plan when selling assets of any kind for yourself or for your clients. You do need to have a $1 million net proceeds, $1 million gain. It needs to be a bigger sale if you're listening just and you're curious. But what a lot of people, they've told us this for years, Hunter, get in a room with people that are smarter than you. It's part of why we go to the best ever conference, right? We go and we try to mastermind with people that are ahead of us, doing really big things so that we could grow and level up. Well, that's what we did with the book. We have some amazing co-authors in the book. That it's not just me, talking about the deferred sales trust, although we do have a few chapters on that. It's really about unlocking ways to build freedoms. And that could be freedom for your businesses. It could be freedom for your legacy as a mentor. We have Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank in the book. He's talking about mentor to millions and how his goal now is to leave a legacy of building leaders, right? And mentoring as many people as he can to help them be an entrepreneurial and achieve some amazing results. we have people like Joe Fairless, as you may have heard of. We have people like Don Winter. We have people like David Young, who's an economist and is masterful as a financial expert. We have people like Tyler McBroom, who's a CPA for Tony Robbins, right? And so we're trying to bring a wide range. We have one of the best top M&A business brokers in the country who regularly does 20, 40, 50, $100 million deals for her clients. And so we bring everyone together to try to really talk about building wealth, unlocking freedom, and it's centered around, capital gains tax is the big challenge that most people are facing. So yeah, that's just a little bit about the book.
Okay, two questions I have. So I've seen some of these names before, as you probably imagine, some definite influential people in the world of real estate and non-real estate, as you mentioned. Two questions. Number one, what are some of the key takeaways that you can see, like reading between the lines, guidance that you've gotten from these, successful people, mentors, et cetera, some of the things that maybe they didn't state exactly, but like you can see amalgamating, looking through the matrix, they're all kind of some common things that are coming up, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. What are some of the things you saw looking through the book?
Yeah. So the book, and I also kind of combine that with the podcast. I've had a chance to interview over 200, 250, folks like yourself, Hunter, who've been on my show, and everyone else on this book as well has been on my show. Yeah, I think the first thing is just a deep conviction and passion for what they do, right? And the gifts they've been given to be able to be a blessing and help to others. These amazing individuals have dedicated their lives, their careers to helping others in a big way. They've been given a lot of gifts, and they're maximizing those gifts with teams, building elite organizations, wanting to give back and mentor others, build wealth with multifamily, unlock freedoms for other people. I think we're all in a pursuit of freedom of some sort, right? Freedom for time, energy, finances, freedom to do the things that we want to do as entrepreneurs, freedom to be creative, all of these different things. And I would just say that I think the most common, I guess, trait would be the grit and persistence to not let anything stand in the way of them achieving their dreams and helping and impacting a lot of people. I think of people like, I would say even I'm looking at my list here, like a Brian Burke. If you've never heard of Brian Burke, he used to be a police officer, right? And as a police officer, he was working really hard helping the community. And then the foreclosure market kind of crashed. He's already kind of always been in real estate, but he really took advantage of the fix and flips. And then he moved into multifamily passive investing and helping and building a massive amount of wealth and doing a great job of it. But he took his street smarts, right, with his book smarts and investment smarts, and he built I think over $5 billion they've done over the years now. Never lost a single dollar. They're an amazing operator. And I just see how people started somewhere, right? And it may not have been where they thought they were going to be, and they end up somewhere else. Even a Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank, like he has an interesting story where he talks about his dad and growing up in the restaurant industry and learning street smarts through the guy who would switch out the kegs every day. And he would see him bring out the kegs, and he'd bring in like 4, right, or whatever, and he'd walk out with 4. But when he would walk them out, the ones that he could tell weren't new because it wasn't sweating. Like it's sweating, meaning it's like it's wet on the outside, knowing that it's fresh. And the dad caught him one time. Kevin was supposed to be the one to like regulate that. And he's like, oh yeah, he's bringing them in. And his dad's like, look beyond that. Look what's going on right now. This guy is ripping us off. And Kevin takes that into business and learning from his parents and learning from his dad as being an entrepreneur. And now he's a billionaire now, right? He's one of the original sharks on Shark Tank. And now he's taken that full cycle to teach other people. So I think that's the biggest thing, is just go help more people once you've made it. That's where you're going to find fulfillment. It's helping other people achieve their biggest success in life and unlocking their gifts. And don't stop when you're on the way up, even if you're at the bottom, because everyone had to start at the bottom.
Totally. Let me kind of ask a rare question. I don't get to ask many people this, but I think you're in a position to know. And then we'll talk about the downside, right? What not to do. So there's a big difference between having $1 million and having $100 million. And not a lot of people know many people that have $100 million thing. I know that you have some clients that are in the ultra high net worth caliber, just given what you do. People come to you, hey, I'm selling this company for $50 million or something like that. What are some of the key takeaways you've seen working with the difference between someone with $1 million gain and this deferred sales trust is going to change my life versus someone that's like, I've done 20 of these and it's good to see you again, but let's get this thing going, right? Like, what is that factor? Because it's not that they've been able to work harder. That's not going to give them 100x. It's not even working smarter either. There's something else that gives them like the difference of a net worth of being able to, live a good life versus being able to like have an unlimited budget where money is not even a concern.
It's a great question, and each client is so unique. And I'm trying to think of the ones that are in maybe the upper net worths versus the mid level versus just maybe like the $1 million level. Um, I I think it always comes down to a systematic discipline of whatever it is that you're trying to achieve by hiring the who and not being the how. I would say
For sure.
these groups have built businesses without them being in the way. In other words, they don't mind, letting other people take the reins and run with it, right? And investing in the systems and those people. And so the biggest successes have been those that found something they loved. In fact, we were on with a gentleman yesterday, and he's looking to sell about a $45 million exit, $50 million exit, netting about 43. We're going to help him for
Wow.
about 35 million,
Whoa.
the 17
He
million
didn't
of
sell any of
tax.
it until now. That's amazing.
Yeah, and he was, about our age, Hunter. Okay, he's a single guy, and but he's been going hard since 2003 with this company, and I'm still getting to know him. But my initial take was he's been able to systematize and build relationships as the visionary, doing the things that he should be doing versus getting caught in the things that aren't going to grow the business, or let someone else grow the business but are going to help him to go win new accounts, new deals. And some of his clients are like Exxon, big oil and gas companies, Shell, Chevron, right? So he's kind of in the oil and gas industry. And so those are always just the lessons to make sure that we're learning as entrepreneurs, that we don't get in the way, that we're investing in top talent, and we're developing leaders versus just trying to do everything ourselves.
Cool. Okay. Now we're going to talk about the downside real quick, and then we'll talk more about financial freedom and they're creating their exit plan, basically.
Mm.
What have you either intuited or have you found that these mentors have been like, this is a red flag? Like myself, I coach people to get to the next level. You obviously put out a podcast. It's free. Most of the people that listen to your podcast don't have $1 million gain, but you want them to. Like, I just know from your personality, you're trying to give them the playbook as best you can. What are some of the pitfalls people can make on that journey, getting to that $1 million mark? What are some of the things, the red flags you can see? Look, listen, man, if you continue down this path, you're not going to get there, just so people can avoid that and reverse engineer what they shouldn't be doing.
I think the biggest thing is analysis paralysis, right? It's just literally just always getting in the own way of the fear of what if I do something, right? And for all of I think the people in the book are ultra successful. I think there's a saying to punch fear in the face and take action, right? And you've got to have a mindset and or be around those who have a mindset of taking action. It doesn't mean it's reckless. It means it's thought out. It's someone who's been there before, who's given you that guidance, and then you've got to step into that and just go do that. And and you're going to learn along the way. And it's part of life. It's part of everything we've ever done, whether it be public speaking, getting on a podcast, recording a video, going on that first job interview, playing in some athletic, contest growing up. Like, all of these things take action. And I think sometimes as we grow up and we get to a certain age, if you're not practicing, I guess, that act of faith in yourself and belief that you can make it happen. And number two, that there's a bigger purpose for everything that we're doing. For me, I believe it's a bigger purpose that God's given us these gifts to be a blessing, help to others. And it's our good stewardship to be able to go take action and help other people take action with it. Like, Hunter, I think we were talking at the Best Ever Conference, and it's so true. And I remember I was introducing you to, and by the way, we're working on that deal still. We'll see if it happens here. It's $150 million exit for a client. And I said, hey, Hunter, he's looking for any which way that anyone who's heard about this to hear it from them. Like, Hunter's probably one of the best people because we've done podcasts on this DST, and he's able to break things down in such a succinct, amazing way and ask amazing questions and get to the pure essence of what it is, right? And so that is a gift, right? And once you recognize that's a gift, and I think you do, right? You know that, then you have to be a great steward with that gift to go help other people who don't necessarily have that gift of thinking on that level, that frequency, right? They may think on a different level, on different frequency, but for investing and for getting to the bottom of things, you have that gift. And so bringing this full circle is you want to make sure that you're believing that you do have a gift, and then B, how do you make as much impact for as many people as you can with that gift? And then of course, how do you monetize that too, right? Work with mentors who could help you with that, with coaching or different things or investing. So that's the big thing. But if you're not taking action, if you're not getting the masterminds, if you're not getting the coaching, if you're not going to the conferences, you're not putting yourself in an environment to be able to unlock that gift and really, I guess, feed that gift, then and exercise that gift. That's the other part too. I have 5 kids, and my daughter's in gymnastics, and now she's wanting to work out with me in the morning. So it's cool. So we go work out in the morning, and then she, like the next day or same day, she'll do gymnastics at night. And we're about to go to bed, right? And she's like reading her book, and she's like, "Dad, will you wake me up in the morning for workout?" I'm like, "Absolutely, I will, but you need to turn your light off when you go to bed right now." She's like, "Well, why?" I'm like, "Because I want to wake you up and you have full energy." I go, "Do you want to be a champion?" And she's like, "Yeah." I go, "Well, champions go to bed on time." She's like, "All right." And she turned the light off and she went straight to bed, and we worked out the next morning, plenty of energy. So I don't know how that all connects, but I'll pass it back to you, Hunter.
No, I like that a lot. And that's good to tie in for kind of my last question, which is about just not focusing on the financial freedom aspect. I'm not going to lie to you. That's critical. Like if you can't make the cash register ring, all this other stuff to me is pretty irrelevant. To other people, it's not as important. I don't mean anyone listening to this podcast. Obviously, it's called the Cash Flow Connections podcast. We're just more inclined towards financial things. Like that's like step one. You got to be able to have a house. You got to be able to eat. Those things come from finance, from my perspective. Then though, if you only live your life focusing on quote financial freedom, you're quickly going to find out that there's other things that may matter more, but they have to be reverse engineered into. I'll tell you what I mean by that. If you are in pursuit of making a lot of money and you have a problem with your health, dude, the money doesn't matter all of a sudden at all, at all. And if you haven't been sick in a while, I don't get sick very often. I take good care of myself and have been blessed with I have a good system for fighting off things. But dude, if you're sick, it's like, how did I ever live a world where this could possibly be possible? And then the moment it's over, you kind of take it for granted and move on. That's just one though. What are other things that come up where you're like, look, it's not just money that matters. It's not just the money freedom that matters.
Yeah, good question. Besides just the health, I think for me lately, it's been, and it's cool because iPhone has this new thing where you can set profiles and you can automatically set the profiles to only accept certain calls at certain times. And it's literally turning it off. And I learned this from Don Winter, and I'm trying to practice. It's called the 20-mile march. And if you haven't looked up the 20-mile march, check it out. It's a whole thing. But the point of it is march and take massive activity during the work hours. And then beyond that, turn it off and know that the next day you're going to be re-energized. You've connected with your family. You're not letting your health go. You're not letting these things that you should be doing, your faith, finances, fitness, personal development, leadership, family, friends, fun, fulfillment, kind of those major things. Spend time making sure that you've scheduled those times for those things, because you're right, Hunter. I think we sometimes get so caught up in just producing cash flow and investing and getting all of these things at the expense of some of these other things. And so some practical tips is be a super planner. And so by the way, I'm not great at super planning. Okay. But guess who is? My wife is. Okay. And so what I've done is I've said, look, I am bad at this. And if it's up to me, I will keep working, right? Because I love what I do, but I love you and the family. So you've got to, here's my calendar. You have it. Please make the ideal calendar for the family, and I will work around work. But you plan it out. Literally all of our vacations, part of our goal is to have 1,000 days in 100 different locations. I learned this from Don Winter as well, right? And that's with the family, 100 unique locations in 1,000 days before the kids are 18. And so we've got to map and plan all of that. We have to budget that, pre-plan it. And if we do that, then I know I'm already blocked off for those. And then number two, so I'm not taking calls outside of working hours. I have it set where my phone automatically switches over at 5 p.m. It's only personal. So my wife can call me, my brother, my mom, my family, basically, maybe some close friends. That's it. And then they can catch me on the next day, and I don't need to be working, outside of hours that aren't scheduled, right? So I would say those are probably the big takeaways to take practical action, Hunter, on those things.
I love that. That's actually super powerful. And my wife is now assuming that role as well. I'm like, look, A plus B equals C, like, let me go. But at the same time, if you want me to attend the dinner, you got to make sure it's on my calendar. Like, this is going to be on you, or we're not going to have the dinner. It's not that I don't want to be at the dinner. It's just that I'm not good at calendaring and scheduling and all this stuff. And I also have an assistant. So like, this is a who, not how thing in practice. Also, the question to how to get more freedom is also related to the question of how to accomplish incredible things, which is discipline. A lot of people can be confused by that. But look, if you want true freedom, it only comes through discipline. That sounds like they're mutually exclusive, but you've seen it in your business. You've seen where the most incredible financial results have come through hard work, doing the same boring thing over and over again. It's also true, by the way, if you have a pet. You have a pet that you can't teach, you don't train, guess what? They can't go outside because they don't get the freedom if they don't understand the rules. On the other side, you have a super disciplined pet. Guess what he gets to do? Walk around outside without a leash on. How cool is that? But how'd that come? It looks easy now. It's like, wow, what a free life he has. Well, how do you think he get to be like that? And I'm saying this because my puppy's a little spoiled and she doesn't get to walk around without a leash on because of it. So Brett, super stoked to see you as always, man. Let the listeners know one more time how they can learn more about the book and get access to it.
Yeah. So the book, the best way is just go to Amazon and search Building a Capital Gains Tax Exit Plan. Building a Capital Gains Tax Exit Plan. You can also go to our website, capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. You can search it on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel. We have our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. Hunter, thank you for having me on the show. It's always a pleasure. I try to find someone with as much or more energy, right? And we're right there neck and neck as it goes. So I really appreciate you, Hunter.
No problem. We'll link to that in the show notes page. Really